What's good with YouTube? You already know Big FLACO with a convict's perspective, and I'm smashing, dashing, sliding on through with a whole lot of energy, man. Please hit the like, subscribe, comment, do all those things to help support your boy, and hit that bell notification and put all so you can get notifications for future fire content. Now, this is an episode that I did with JC from Mob Entertainment Group, man. Long time ago on Stories Written by a Current Prisoner, I pretty much brought him into, onto the channel, man, and did an interview. And we've since remained contact here and there throughout the last few years, man. And here's an interview that I did, man, a long time ago on Real Talk, that I'm moving over from Real Talk to ACP. It's a good one, man. It's kind of interesting, man. You could tell JC has been around all kinds of different type of people in his life, man. He always has some interesting stuff, and he's well versed, he's well studied, man. He knows his shit, man. So you guys are going to enjoy this one. With that said, man, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me talk a little bit about this guest. About a year and a half ago, he tapped in on me when I was doing a lot of work on, I just started the convict's perspective, right? But I was still doing interviews on Stories Written by a Current Prisoner. He tapped in with me. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to bring you over to Stories Written by a Current Prisoner. We're going to do the interview over there. You know what I mean? So I think I was once again, this is his very first interview was through me. And we have JC from Mob Entertainment. Fresno has a very interesting story about his interactions with the Detroit Partnership, as well as out there in Fresno, Humboldt County. Big time weed runner at one time, man. And now he's doing the most good for himself, man. How you doing, brother?
Oh, absolutely wonderful. I appreciate you having me back on, FLACO. You know, the one thing about me and one thing I learned way back in the day was that you always show gratitude and appreciation for those who put you on. You always show loyalty when it comes to that. Back in the day, if the guy that schooled you on how to, run casino action, or if you were running, cannabis or whatever your deal was, whoever it was that schooled you, you don't bite his hand. You always show your appreciation, especially in today's world where, we have a reliance upon audience to get our message out. And so, one thing I've appreciated about you is no matter whether I've, during the times I've followed you closer or less close, if I'm doing my stuff in my life and, running my business, no matter what, you've always been a guy that seemed to be on point. And no matter what kind of people or whatever kind of distractions are thrown your direction, you're moving forward. And
Always,
that's
man.
the sign of a real one.
It's hard at times, man, but I get throwing stuff at me left and right lately, and I do the best. I'm trying to do the Matrix right now. You know what I mean? Yeah, I appreciate you, man.
You get hit from so many. One of the great things about so many these haters out there is that you'll get hit from one angle, and when you disprove that, the same person will just switch their argument to another angle on that, and you're like, wait a minute, you're just changing the goalposts. Back in the day, give you an example real quick. All these trolls used to say, oh, he doesn't really live in a nice part of Cali now. He's, and he wasn't. But then they'd also say he's not from the barrio. He's not from a hood neighborhood. Well, what is it? They'd look at me now and say, well, there's no way he could be. Well, not the guy from 30 years ago, different story. So anyhow, they were trying to goad me into showing off my house so I would dox myself. That was part of, they were hoping I was too stupid to figure out that, hey, I'm going to prove them wrong. Here, look, here's my house. See this? See my address? See my street? I live in a nice area. And then all of a sudden I got problems because, that's what, but eventually I did, for my fans, show it off, and I demonstrated to my fans. I waited like 8 months or so before doing anything like that because I made it clear. I promised them I will let you guys know how I live and what my life is like now, but I'm doing it on my timetable or that of my fans based on the input that I get from them. I will not do anything quicker or later because some hater said to do it or tried to insinuate to do it. And as long as you're doing that while also batting down the arrows and, you can address things without even saying them directly. If someone brings up an issue, about an arrest or something, you could use that, say, you know what, in 2 weeks, I'm doing a show where I'm going to talk about this whole topic. And then they're whatever the flack they threw gets muted, but I showed them what's up. And then what's funny is when they did try to dox, they found out that my mom still lives in the old area. My mom lives in like a crazy blood part of a blood neighborhood, actually near and about another mile away from where we were from Parkside itself, Parkside, Fresno. So it was kind of funny. They found out my mom is more hardcore than many of them because she still lives in the hood, and I don't. I'll be honest. I moved. I was like Elroy from Friday. I got the lotto ticket and I was gone. I rolled out.
So you said Parkside, huh?
Parkside,
we're
Fresno.
gonna move this conversation around, guys. We're gonna talk about different stuff, man. So Parkside, Fresno, man, I can only imagine how that would be back in those days, man, because that's when everything's just started to change, man. You probably had I've seen areas where you go in there, and the most craziest areas are where you have everybody like in one area.
That's 100%. That's 100%. I was raised on Clinton Avenue, right off of West. For those of you who know California, you know that the Highway 99 that comes up from Bakersfield and then heads up to Sacktown, off of the Clinton exit right there. That's one exit north of Roding Park itself. That's where the Bulldogs and the Norteños before that got their name, PSF, Parkside, Fresno. When I was a kid in the 1980s, my neighborhood was an F-14. There were no such thing as Bulldogs. Never heard of it. When I thought of Bulldogs, I thought of the local college, or I'd think of Saturday night football, watching the local college, Kevin Sweeney and a lot of other great players back in the day. Yeah. And so, but eventually around the 90s, early 90s is when I first started really noticing a lot of young homies that were becoming dogs by then, walking around and all that kind of stuff. And, in my situation, I grew up, there was, from where I was at, anybody who knows that neighborhood from back in the day, not the way it is now, but the way it was then, you'll know that just to the south of us was a Crip set. It was a Crip neighborhood called the Crook Street Crips. It was called Brooks, but they called it Crook Street. There was Parksiders over there. You also had these little trailer park areas where these, basically these like future AB type, the guys that would make up that kind of a group would yeah, basically. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I knew a few of them too, actually. One street behind me on Terrace, there was 3 Norteños that lived there. They had been put away in the late 80s for moving 100 plus pounds of weed. They were busted by the DEA and the locals right in my neighborhood. It was actually the bus happened down the street from my house at the 7-Eleven. They were caught up by a rat. A guy set them up. They were coming home about that time when I was getting into the game on Fruit Avenue, which is one light to the east of West Avenue. Marcelo, our local cartel guy, lived. He lived at 2012 Fruit Avenue, and
that's the one that put you on.
Yeah, he was one of the first ones. I was involved with GTAs, and I was in a tagging crew back in the day, a couple of them, and I'm involved with commercial burglaries when I was like 16. And that's about when I really started getting started with this. Had some issues at home and all kinds of stuff, and I was mixed up with Asian gangsters at the time that lived in my neighborhood. And I ended up getting snitched on by a TRG member. And that same guy would end up getting shot and killed on the streets of California in 2003. So I was ratted on in 1992 for a theft case. The guy that snitched me out was taken out and on the streets of Cali. I didn't do it, for the record. He snitched on a few others, and his past caught up with him. But I evolved from thefts to the weed game because it's really easy when you're used to grabbing things with theft. That makes a great marijuana or other drugs because you know how it is if you've been around the game or you've been in prison. So you know what it's like to be under constant surveillance. And you have to be quick. If you're quick with your hands and you know how to act out some stuff, you can get away. So Cello, I met when I was 17. He schooled me, a guy who would later become a major Fresno leader in my county. I won't say his name, but if anyone who looks up my case from February of 1994, you will see my co-defendant and who he became later on. He went back to prison a couple of times while I went to college and was on probation and never got caught again for a while. And so the another guy he schooled was an Italian dude that ended up moving back to Michigan. And he was the one who ended up calling all of us up saying he had made contact with the Cosa Nostra family there they had Chaldeans, Middle Easterners from Lebanon, Syria, who used to do all their drug trafficking stuff for them. And the Italian dudes from from the old school days there were the more of the management, of it all, and they figured out how to make it really profitable. So another guy that was, a few other Mexican dudes that were bulldogs, and other guys were also schooled by the same guy. Um, he was so important to me because I get haters that'll say, "Can you prove you had any cartel contacts?" Yeah. When I got arrested in February of 1994 for a theft case that I shouldn't have been involved with, because I told them I was done with that. I said we're all drug dealers now, but I wasn't supposed to be involved with that. I was supposed to be chilling out. They didn't like the cartel guys and the mob in them. They don't like that. If you got a set designated job, you stick to it. You don't go committing other crimes and messing up the business for everybody.
Yes.
I called him from county jail, so that's a public phone. I called my mom. I called some chick that I was, hanging out with at the time, and I called him to let him know, hey, we had a code that he'd just say, "What are you calling me for, MFer?" And that would be your code to let you know that you're all good. But I was just like, "Hey, I was supposed to meet you. Yeah, I won't be there. I'm not sure, when I'll be back." As you can tell by the recording before you got to hear my voice, this is a, county jail call. So, but that guy, it was that whole area was just the cops used to call it a cauldron or a cesspool, and they do things like that. You're from the cesspool, you're from the cauldron, and it was a microcosm. There was the area where my mom still lives is an area where there was been a blood set for years, and just down the way was another Crip set, 6 Deuce Diamond Crips. They were there was another one, 107 Hoovers, a little bit further to the northeast of us. So there was AB, Asian boy AB, that I got to differentiate there. But ABs and Lao Boys, I was a friend of one of the big Lao Boy leaders at one time. And he's doing good now. The dude's got a business now. So, no, and what I noticed, the lesson for the audience here is that out of all of your homeboys from back in the day, for those of you, especially in your 30s or 40s or 50s, and you look back now, how many of them are either dead or they're in prison, or they got lucky and maybe found a route into the military, or they decided to go to school at the last minute, or they got a construction trade, or maybe got into business? There's a big category of destruction over here, and there's a small category of ultimate winners over here. And the ultimate winners leave it.
Eventually, it all comes out in the wash. Like I always say, man. The money's good in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, that fast money will catch back up to you real quick, man. You were lucky though. You were fortunate, man. You know what I mean? To have a chance to go out there and reobtain your citizenship and so forth, man, and be productive out there. What do you got going on right now with your life, man?
So nowadays, I run a small business that's doing quite well, and it's kind of cool because I'm I guess you could say a sort of a pillar of the community. It's a weird thing for guys who used to break into cars at City Hall to be getting awards near, you know what I mean? It's like I when I first went to college, I went to college on a plea deal, by the way, just before the 3 strikes law kicked in. I got I got a plea deal where if I had to keep a B average or better, or I could get shipped to Wasco, and my co-defendant ended up violating probation, his terms, and he did end up going to prison a few times. And when I'm first walking through, I'm like, man, I used to steal a car from that part of the parking lot. My guys that we would look around, and I tell these college kids, you need to be real careful and lock up your stuff. Oh, it's safe here. I mean, no, it's not safe here. I know firsthand what happens when people don't lock their doors here. Little they know they're talking to a dude that may have been scoping out their car 6 months earlier. But you know what I mean? Like when you're trying to get yourself reoriented to like citizen stuff, and you think back of, this is where I used to sell stuff from, man. I used to do, you know what I mean?
It gets difficult because I have a lot of time out now, man. But for a minute though, man, it's like you can't get acclimated fast enough. You get out there, you want that instant gratification, you want everything to come easy. You want the fast money, you want the cars, everything. You got to work for it.
You do. You really have no choice, and everybody has a plan when they have plenty of time to think about it. But then it's the execution part.
Execution, yep.
And then the last time I was in the system, I did 90 days at West Care, and this was in 2012. So I got to chill out, mostly level 2 and level 3 guys from my area and federal offenders with finishing off their last year and stuff like that. And this was right as realignment's happening. So you know how realignment was. They shifted from the 3 strikes, tough on crime. Everybody's getting, every misdemeanor you do becomes a felony if you have a record, and
they went back to everything as misdemeanors again. Can you believe that?
Yeah, exactly. These kids young now, they have no clue how lucky they are that they don't have the law enforcement or the prison apparatus that was around in the 90s and 2000s.
My second term was a dope possession case, right? I would have got out in today's time.
Bro, two of my felony cases would have been automatic misdemeanors if I did the same things now. But I still have the consequences of a felony. Obviously, you can't own firearms no matter what. Your Second Amendment's history, and there's a lot of other rights where they say you get them back, but what happens every time that you touch the system again? They treat you like a career criminal. You could be out for 20 years. You end up back in, you're still a kingpin.
See, that I got issues with, because look, if you're like, say you were in there for nonviolent crime, you know what I'm saying? No weapon, no violence. Why should you be deprived of a gun if you came in, did your time, and get off parole?
I agree. I agree. The Constitution is the Constitution. You shouldn't just be able to hand back some rights and not all of them. Now, if I don't have a problem with like a time period, like this normal 7 or 10 year statute. But when you got dudes that, look, I literally lost my Second Amendment right. I was actually on juvenile probation on my 18th birthday, so I didn't even get to own a gun yet. And then 3 months or so after, I was off juvenile probation finally, and there was a short period of time where I could technically own a gun. But I haven't had it since then, and I have done work for politicians from both political parties. I've done stuff in Sacramento. I did a college internships with responsible businesses. I have 2 college degrees, 2 bachelor's degrees, and associates. I can't, but I can't technically own one. I don't know, maybe with the way they reform some of the stuff in Cali, but then you still got to worry about the feds, because even if California reforms your old felony and makes it a misdemeanor, what happens if you go to the gun store and the ATF says, we still count it as a felony and you're now a felon trying to get a firearm, and you're going to get 10 years or 5 for whatever the federal, So it's crazy. Maybe we might have I have no clue whether we actually have our rights back now that California has reversed some of these criminal laws that would have applied to us. But it's not worth the shot. You don't try it. Don't go testing out whether you got your rights back, for those of you guys in that situation going to the store. But you're right, bro. It shouldn't just be your right to vote, but you can't protect your home. 20 years later.
I can see for the more extremely violent people and whatnot. Okay, you know what I mean? But
sure.
If you've done your time, you paid your debt to society. That's the whole part of it. You paid your debt. You're no longer punished. Why continue to punish them?
At the very least, they should allow it to where most people can get their rights back, and it just at least keep a gun in your house.
Yeah.
Because you should be able to protect, if they really care about your children, because one reason why most guys have them, usually you're more apt to get them if you're not involved with crime, you're more apt to buy them when you have family, because that's when it's most important. When we're younger dudes, we don't think we're ever going to get got. You know how that is, right? Yeah. But you got children. So if the government really wants you to be able to protect your children, why would they strip you of your right to do so? So, Yeah,
man. It's always, what happens though is you have these tragedies that happen, shootings at school, churches and whatnot. They come down 10 times harder on the street people that are on the streets than they do on those. You know what I mean? It trips me out a little bit, man, because the system's gone through it's always changing, man. Like there's no set pattern. The system is how they want to create it. You know what I mean? It's like Fresno, you had that one officer that was fucking shaking down fucking drug addicts and taking their fucking meth. You hear about that?
I didn't hear about that latest one, but it doesn't surprise me.
The captain, didn't the captain or chief get busted for moving product out there as well?
Well, there was Foster, okay, right-hand man to Chief Dyer, who's now Mayor Dyer, who who showed up to the
That guy,
program.
that guy,
I
that guy,
actually took a picture with him when he was police chief. It's kind of funny. So did other
that guy
convicts.
showed up though. That Dyer guy showed up to one of his coworkers, man, and allegedly found the dude dead. But there were some red flags about that situation.
Sure. And you know what? Check this out. This is even crazier. You go back further with my Mob Entertainment Group channel. I've been researching Mafia history in Cali, right? In Fresno, it turns out that the local Italians, Armenians, and the old NFs that were friends with them, because the NF back in the old school days worked with the mob in my area. It died out before, my area became an open area for as far as the Italian mob was concerned by the 90s, because they were gone by then. But in the old days, like the 50s, 60s, 70s, they were paying off the police chief. There were 2 police chiefs that were arrested themselves. One for taking money from brothels, prostitution houses in Fresno. And you look at these headlines and you're like, damn. Then you see the next one. He got arrested too. And then the one after that was the dude from the 80s. And then the one after that was the first one I had to deal with as a criminal. And you're like, bro, I'm only 2 police chiefs removed from a blatant corruption case. That lets you know most of the time it's like any other agency. Even if they clean out some bad apples, there's a few left. And if they can help control the hiring, they just bring in some new ones, or they co-opt new guys as they get more jaded from doing all the street patrols and they start hating everybody because they got to deal with all the garbage on the street. That we when we were criminals, let's be honest, there was other criminals we couldn't stand. If there was other criminals that if we had our way, we would have probably done something to back then. But cops, they get jaded, and so the more crooked cops can just reel them in and say, look, man, you work your ass off, bro. There's a few ways we can really make this job profitable. Come on, we take all this. It becomes easy to justify. The more garbage you go through, the more easy it becomes to justify taking shortcuts to get ahead.
Yes, I agree, man. That's a good way to look at it. So besides Fresno County, Delano County was also going to have a lot of corruption as well, right?
Oh yeah. The whole valley, I would say. I wouldn't say the word a lot, because keep something in mind. You don't need to have a lot of corruption for the community to feel like there's a lot of it. All you have to do is corrupt the most well-placed people. If you can corrupt the guy right at the top, he can make sure everything else is rotten from there. And so, that old phrase, one bad apple can spoil the bunch. Well, that's, prime one. The guys in the valley, one of my theories as to why it was, things were sort of Wild West-ish was because traditionally speaking, the Mafia in LA, the old Mickey Cohen and the Jack Dragna, the guys that had it from, and evolved to where now Mexican Mafia and those groups now run LA County and all of SoCal. But you look at, there was always a historical divide between the North and the South. The Mafia in the Bay Area, the San Francisco and San Jose factions did their thing.
San Jose was Bonanno family, I believe.
They had a couple of Bonanno captains. A lot of Cali was still sort of open to.
They had like 2 families, I think, that were there. And they kind of coexisted. I think it was the Bonanno family that they had an associate there and some other one, man. They were more
the family that was from San Jose originally. I can't think of the guy's name offhand, but he was a businessman type. But my area of Fresno in the valley was sort of the way station for all of the drug traffic from the 40s, 50s, 60s going on up. Because keep in mind, going through Fresno, if you got to transport from Mexico, San Diego, LA, anywhere in SoCal, really, you got to go up through the Grapevine unless you want to take the Pacific Coast Highway, which takes forever. And nobody trafficking dope wants to do that. You go up, you got a clean freeway through the Grapevine, then you got 99 and I-5. Guess what? They both go through Fresno County. And one reason why Fresno became sort of a no man's land between criminal groups and became independent as it became was because of that. And I really believe that ultimately the Vatos in this area figured out that it was better in their view, from a greed point of view, to do it on their own without being part of the NF anymore, because Fresno was still a powerhouse for the drug business. And then the crank business erupted in Fresno in the 80s and 90s. And, meth was ground zero in Fresno. Then it went to the rest of California, then the rest of the USA. And so from a drug trafficking point of view, if you're a leader than the NF in the late 80s. And your choice is I can keep kicking up to an organization, or I can tell these guys that live 3 hours away from me to go F themselves, because are they going to come down to my area and really enforce this at the end of the day? Are they going to come drive into Parkside? Are vatos from San Jose or Oakland going to come down to the east side of Fresno and start banging it? No, it's not going to happen. You know, you'll have some skirmishes behind bars, certainly, and there's issues there. But the greedy leadership guys can take it and take their – and they make more money independently. But it probably costed them in the long run, because if you don't have anything behind bars in California, ultimately what you do on the outside is going to be affected, because you know you got to have contacts in both places. And so Fresno already had that culture. So, and when there's money like that, that's where corruption gets involved.
I was just out there in Fresno not that long ago. I'm trying to think where that one street is. It's a main street off the 99, where all the motels are at.
Golden State Boulevard.
No, I want to say Eden. I think is there Eden? Eaton.
What part of the 99 are you thinking of?
I think west. I think it was on the west. No, it wasn't the west. No. I'm trying to think where it was at, man. I remember there was an IHOP, there was a hotel right there, and then across the street from the IHOP was a sex shop or something like that.
Well, I wouldn't know where it was, and I don't go to those kind of places.
This guy knows exactly where that was over there.
You know, well, I was right here. I know exactly where you were, FLACO.
You?
No, IHOP. Okay, I'm thinking IHOP off of 99, right? On
there's
IHOP.
IHOP right there. And then there's a Home Depot right there too as well.
Okay, that's Shaw Avenue.
East Shaw. I was on East Shaw right there, man. Then I was out there. We went through Manchester, by the Manchester Plaza. There was this bomb ass taqueria seafood place right there. You know where the plaza is behind Manchester? There's like a hole in the wall.
Yeah, I know. That's almost where I grew up. Yeah.
Man, that hole in the wall spot had the best drinks I've ever had.
I'll tell you, for those of you who really want to do this, if you're driving through Fresno and you want a really good meal and it's about 5 p.m. or later, right off of McKinley and 99, you get off at McKinley and you go just to West Avenue and McKinley, right off the freeway there. You can't miss it. There's a taco truck there. The dude's hella cool. And you remember back in the day, bro, in the 90s, those
at the gas station, right? At the gas station?
Yeah, right there. Yeah, exactly. It's at a auto repair place, right diagonal from a gas station, but it's still an auto shop there. But yeah,
I went to one place that was fire.
$2 burritos. He has them for like $6, and there's the big fat ones. They barely can roll the big flour tortilla over. Yeah. Get that thing rolled up like a zigzag. But yeah, it's like $6, bro. And then there's also one of the there's a couple of good supermercados on Clinton now right there too, where you can get some stuff inside the store. They got.
I went to a couple bars and I was tripping off the names because it said the bar, the next bar, the bar after.
Oh yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. I used to go to that place.
That's on the east side though. I think that's on the east side, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what the dude was smart. He just bought those little. They used to be Yules. And these little bars that would be in these strip malls, just a place to go in, a little kind of crevice kind of place. And he got his first one super cheap and he literally called it the bar. He's like, you know what? I can't think of a name. So for now, I'm just going to write the bar.
Yeah, the next bar. It was crazy.
And then it did good. Well, I guess the next one's the next bar. The bar after that.
They're not big bars, but they're designed nicely inside, man. I was tripping on that.
Yeah. That's how he started, though. I used to go there back in my college days. Sometimes we'd go hit those places up.
You know what I tripped on though, man? It's like that everywhere now. You cannot really tell what someone claims out there in the streets no more. It's not like before. I'm looking around. I see blacks, Mexicans, and I can't tell who's who out there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I think I see
some of that. Yeah, I see some of that. Back in the day. I don't know what it is. I think, they're culturally different now, younger people. I see some of these guys, and a lot of the younger dudes today, they would rather play video games, eat Doritos, freaking explore their gender stuff, or whatever the heck. You know what I'm saying? It's a different generation. They don't make them like it used to be. You know,
27,
my old
27
area,
years.
bro. You know, there's more poverty now because of the whole lockdown stuff. But
Yes.
prior to that old area, you'll see the young dudes when they're leaving high school now. They're like they're not back in the day. They'd be vatos or freaking stoner dudes,
Yeah.
or skaters, something. But now it's just like they're just wearing like real skinny tight jeans. They're like they're flashing their phones at themselves.
Little backpack.
From this, you know.
They got a backpack that's as big as a fanny pack.
Yeah. They got the vanity mirror now. The new vanity mirrors are phones, you know, and you know they're more, you know, and you know they're just it's a different kind of thing now. Doesn't mean that there aren't some real ones out there, but the other
They're extremely violent though.
Yeah, that's the thing is that there's more like that explosive kind of, you know, out of nowhere, you know, crazy stuff. You know,
too much violence, you're not going to make this.
Yeah, and one of the things that has changed too is the whole idea on informing or this and that. I personally don't care because I've been so far away from it. I've got friends who have sat down with the FBI, the government, other guys who've testified in cases. A lot of times they are testifying against dudes that are violent criminals. Let's just be honest. Me as a citizen now, I don't want the guys walking the street that guys I talked to on YouTube testified against. Now, me as a dude 30 years ago would have viewed that as a violation of the rules. You're ratted, therefore you should pay the piper for it.
We all would have, man.
Over with, you know. And now, though, they see snitching, younger dudes see snitching as a tactic now. They see that as, you know, when they're in the game, there's dudes that just hustle and hustle and hustle, knowing that the moment I do get, you know, hit the first time, I'll just, you know, say all the names I gotta say. I'll cut a deal where I can walk away with most of the money, with maybe a fine kind of thing, and all the, you know, but they view it as part of their game, their business plan, their gangster business plan, so to speak, involves the ratting at the end, possibly.
But a lot of times it won't be them that's doing it; they'll have someone else do it for them.
Yeah, and another thing too is the game now, bro, is with all the electronics, the cops, they don't even have to rely necessarily on informants. People rat themselves out. They got phones that record everything they do.
Yeah,
they got apps. You know, the in today's world, it ain't worth it for these younger dudes. It's already bad enough having to take on a police department or a federal task force from the 90s or 2000s. Now you got supercomputers and AI helping detectives figure out who's who.
The FBI, the government caught up though. They were lacking before. They're finding ways to indict these cases, man, and putting on 60, 80 years on people, man.
Football numbers.
Yeah, football numbers. Man, basketball numbers nowadays, man. It's crazy.
It's true, huh?
Yeah, well, the system of the feds is blown up, man, because before you really had to be doing something big, man, to get a federal sentence. Now they're doing all these conspiracy and these RICO acts. I don't know how you could beat a conspiracy case. I mean, think about that. I mean, it's like a if you have a conspiracy case, it's like you're already done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're conspired to conspire. That's how what you're going to get prosecuted because you thought about doing it. You know, it's and you know, back, you know, with that kind of stuff, they have all those different angles. No matter what, if they don't get you from this agency, they'll find another one to come get you. They'll hit you from whatever angle. And now they got computers that tell them which law enforcement agency. You know, the same computers and AI that tells us which videos we should be watching on YouTube and seems to get it right sometimes. Like, wow, this is just what I was thinking about. Well, guess what? Detectives in the government got that same stuff, and they tell them what's he most likely to do next. You know, if they know who you are, which they will eventually figure you out, they now have computers that say, okay, the next time he robs a bank, it's most likely to be these 3 locations. That's what the computer just told us. So we'll make sure to let them know in advance if something happens in the next week, you know what it is. The computer told you. And that's how it's getting. It's like those 80s sci-fi movies, bro, where a few dudes, you know, are running from the system, running man type movies, you know, and like one dude can only a few criminals are really smart enough to actually take on law enforcement in the future.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting there now, bro. We're all that stuff from the 80s and 90s we saw in those crazy movies with all
Everything's
the
building
tech
up a
stuff.
little bit. You know what I mean? Everybody's a lot more tense lately, man. Anyways, we've been on it for about 35 minutes. I try to do 40-minute interviews, so I want you to end this, bring us home. I want you to talk about your channel, what's going on in the future, and what we're going to see from you in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Flaco. Like I said from the jump, I appreciate guys who are there for me. And, you know, you're always welcome on my channel. And I have other friends.
Tell me when. Tell me when. I'll be ready.
Yeah. One guy, Billy Catolo Jr., his dad was a major boss, you know, right in the whole Gotti era, that kind of era. His father was next in line, or he was around Michael Franzese and guys like that. Anthony Arlotta is another one to see. He's involved with my channel. He was a Genovese boss. He managed all of Springfield.
Gunnar Lindblom, how's he doing?
Gunner's doing good. He's
I used to
working
talk to him a lot.
on.
I used to talk to him a lot, man. I haven't talked to him for a while, man. It's been a while.
Yeah. He's not on YouTube anymore. But he has some deals he's working
Or
in
Facebook. He's getting kicked off of Facebook or YouTube every other week.
Well, Gunner's one of those dudes that's like, I don't care. I'm gonna talk the way I want to talk.
Yeah, I know.
That algorithm's gonna catch you, bro. You can't be talking about certain diseases. We'll just say, and there's certain words you can't be saying on YouTube without, you know. But I got MobEntertainmentGroup.com. I've got those guys I'm working with. I'll refer some of them over to you. A lot of my friends' channels are doing good. I got slot machine action on my page. I've got cannabis delivery. I've got all kinds of promo partners.
Now, what slot machines you got?
I got a deal, bro, where I deal with a gaming company out of Costa Rica, and they have a platform set up that's legal for U.S. and gamblers in America. And I get 45%
like Rival or RTG or any of those.
You can do slot machines. You can play blackjack. You can play a few other roulette and online dice and stuff like that. And if you lose, I get 45% of it. So I'm, you know, but you some people do have to, you know, it's a casino. Some people got to win. But believe me, I get almost half of your losses. So please click on my website by all means. I got cannabis stuff. I got basically a lot of the same things that we used to be involved with back in the day, except now it's legal. And the voters of Cali tomorrow, because it's May whenever it airs. Today's Monday the 7th, the pre-record. If they vote in legalizing sports betting and other online stuff, then I can even be registered right out of California.
Oh wow!
But no matter what, safe and secure. It's legit all through. It's through a company that's been around for a long time and does all kinds of online gaming. And so the future is bright, Flaco. The channel blew up.
You got your hands in everything, which is cool, man. That's what's up, man. You know, because I remember when
you. I started these, by the way, just by doing sit downs with some of Freeway Rick Ross's guys, just interviews in 2017 and 2018 on public access channels in Fresno, bro, and just being interviewed, and it just sort of parlayed into, man, you should be on YouTube, and I'm like, all right, I'll start this, and then I started meeting these other guys that these things, and here we are. You were one of our first ones, bro. I love how your channel's going, Flaco. So,
YouTube gets like this sometimes. You know what I mean? It's a
the algorithm. You get.
I liked it better about around that time because everything was more positive all the time. You didn't have to deal with all the little BS. You know what I mean? It was easier. It was easier to carry a positive message, man. You know what I'm saying? And it felt good to do certain things. But,
exactly. We unfortunately with the online stuff, in the old school days, if people didn't like a performance on, like the 1800s, if someone was watching a play they didn't like, remember they would throw like tomatoes and whatever. We all know those images, right? In today's world with YouTube, they throw stuff at our families off. Like, guess what? I just contacted his employer. I'm going to try to get him fired. Why? Because I didn't like what he said. Really? It's just stuff like that. Today's world, instead of throwing tomatoes at us, they try to throw us, flack on the internet. It is what it is, though. I figured out how to deal with them all. I always look at the silver lining. Anytime they've ever tried to come at me, doxing stuff, whatever, Like, you know what? I'll use this as an opportunity to show my old neighborhood. Oh yeah, you're gonna say I didn't grow up here? No problem. We'll go back there and I'll walk through there. I've done live streams where I'm walking around. You see the homeboys of today's world walking right by me.
That's the stereotypes people have about mob associates. A lot of times, what a mob associate's going to look like is nothing you expect. They're going to be the average, clean-looking guy, the business-looking, the family guy, you know, making his rounds, because they don't want anybody handling their business or their product, will say, that's going to be a hot boy.
Well, that's the same thing with cartel guys. The truth is, the media portrays cartel guys as overly violent, and the reality is the majority of them are just Mexican dudes that are working and making good money. They're up here, and you know, the guy I dealt with was up here for time periods. He'd have different partners that would cycle in and out, and nobody's wanting to go get crazy and all that. We would prefer that business happens. And you know what? Marcelo used to look like just some average dude. He drove an older car. He would, you know, he looked like someone that, like, he would occasionally go to those, you know, those mariachi type bars that the Border Brothers go to, wearing a nice suit. But he would only do that like once a month. But most of the time he chilled. He didn't raise red flags. He wasn't all flashy and all that. And you wouldn't have known it, him driving by most average citizen. Regular dude. Well, we appreciate having you on.